Hey everyone! In this video, I've rounded up the games expected to be released in 2026. Some of them are big hits, and some are surprises that will make you wonder, what the hell is this? We'll take a look at which ones are actually playable, and which ones only look good in trailers. Without further ado, let's get to the list. DECAPOLICE struck me as one of those games that seems innocent at first glance, but gradually darkens in its content. As a detective in a futuristic city, you don't just wander around crime scenes. You enter the simulated world of DECASim, relive events verbatim, and uncover hidden details. This, in my opinion, is the game's strongest point. The detective work isn't gimmicky. It genuinely demands thought. You're constantly preoccupied with who's lying and which details are important. I like that the combat system isn't turn-based, but focused on catching the enemy, rather than the classic shoot-and-pass approach, because it fits the spirit of the game. I think this structure will work very well for the Switch. When playing handheld, it feels like I'll solve a level and then dive into the simulation. I envision a smoother, more detailed experience for the Switch too. It's a shame the release isn't due to 2026, but I appreciate the lack of rushing and the game's easy-to-digest gameplay. The Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition truly transforms the game from a mere resellable version into a complete package. The base game, all expansions, and additional content are all available under one roof. Story-driven add-ons like Far Harbor significantly expand the world, while additional elements of the settlement system make it possible to play the game almost like a survival simulation. The sheer amount of content in this edition is so extensive that you might find yourself forgetting the main quests and spending hours exploring ruins, building a base, or pursuing side quests. The gameplay still isn't a pure FPS. Loot gathering, conversation choices, and character development are central to everything. For the planned Switch 2 release, it's reasonable to expect a more technically stable experience, faster loading times, and cleaner visuals. Fallout 4 still isn't a perfect RPG, but the sense of freedom it offers makes it much more appealing to those who want everything in one package. Lost Hellden is one of several games announced for the Nintendo Switch, combining a hand-painted visual style with a modern RPG structure. The game is set in a dark fantasy world, and the narrative centers on themes like fate, faith, and sin. The narrative focuses on the character's internal conflicts rather than the classic be the hero narrative. The combat system isn't entirely turn-based, nor is it entirely action-oriented. Reflexive decisions and planning intertwine, making fights demand careful, not rote, playable play. 8 playable characters, along with skill trees and equipment, allow for the development of each character in different directions. Its art-focused visual style, rather than photorealistic, seems like a logical choice for the Switch, creating an atmosphere suited to handheld gameplay. While there's no firm release date yet, Lost Hellden is positioned as a leisurely game for Switch users looking for an alternative JRPG. Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave feels like the series is moving away from its usual Kingdom Wars and into something more, as this time around events revolve around a kind of tournament of fate, and characters seem to be fighting not only for their nations, but also for their own pasts and goals. The core gameplay is still based on a tactical turn-based system. Unit placement, terrain advantages, and character connections are as crucial as ever, but this game seems to focus more on individual stories. The arena-style structure promises more intense, more closed-off, and more strategic encounters than traditional map battles. Being exclusive to the Switch 2 suggests we'll technically see larger maps, smoother animations, and much more detailed cutscenes. I'm looking for a more personal and dramatic experience that changes the tone of the series, rather than a just another Fire Emblem experience, and if the story is strong, it could be one that will be talked about for a long time to come. Wandering Sword breaks free from classic RPG conventions without tiring the player out of it. The story revolves around a young swordsman's struggle to survive and grow stronger, and the game's world is expansive and detailed enough to accommodate this journey. Ancient Chinese-themed maps, wandering through mountains, temples, and towns, give the feeling of navigating a truly living world. The combat system is one of its strongest points, as it can be played in either turn-based or real-time, leaving the pace entirely in the player's hands. Character development isn't superficial. The fighting style you choose, the master you visit, and the techniques you focus on learning directly impact the gameplay. It's perfectly suited for Switch, feeling comfortable in both handheld and desktop. It's clear that the game's visual clarity and performance will shine even brighter on the Switch too. Pokémon Pokopia seems like it'll offer a completely different experience than the classic Pokémon games, because this time, the goal isn't collecting badges, but building a world from scratch. In the game, you control a Ditto that can transform into a human and transform an empty island into a home for Pokémon. You farm, build structures, craft items, manage the environment, and interact with Pokémon directly. The Pokémon aren't just fighting creatures here. They all have real uses. Some tend to the soil, some assist with waterworks, and some play a role in building structures. That's the real point of the game, in my opinion. It makes the Pokémon world feel truly alive for the first time. It's not a Switch 2 exclusive for good reason, as expansive spaces, crowded environments, and more detailed animations are essential for this kind of game. I'm expecting more than action from Pokopia: calmness, exploration, and a sense of making my own world. It seems like a game that brings the Pokémon universe to life in a smoother, more personal, and more enduring way. Avatar Legends: The Fighting Game is the first game to truly bring the Avatar universe to a pure fighting game format, aiming to offer a competitive experience rather than a side-scrolling experience. The game features a one-on-one combat system, and the characters' powers aren't just visual differences. Each bending style truly changes the gameplay. Speed, range, and damage are significantly different among fire, water, air, and earth styles, making character selection more strategic than cosmetic. The hand-drawn 2D animation style perfectly matches the series' spirit, making fights feel like watching an animated movie. The support character system allows for more dynamic tactics than traditional fighting games. Its release for the Switch 2 demonstrates a commitment to technical fluidity and crisp visuals. First Light is a game that rewinds James Bond from the very beginning, focusing on his pre-legendary agent, and that's precisely what intrigued me. It promises to see the character not as a ready-made super agent, but as someone who learns, makes mistakes, and grows. Developed by IO Interactive, the game offers an action-adventure structure that combines stealth, combat, agent gadgets, and storytelling. So, don't expect a straightforward hit-and-run game. The key is hiding, reading the environment, waiting for the right moment, and using technology wisely. The single-player focus also indicates a heavy emphasis on the story. The point is to show Bond how he became an agent. While the Switch 2 is among the platforms, there's no clear information yet on performance or technical details, so it's important to keep expectations high. Still, the idea of a new Bond debut offers a perspective not seen in classic films, elevating this game from the "I'll see if he comes" level to the "I'll watch it" level. Dynasty Warriors Origins is a reimagining of the series, starting from the ground up, and this time, it's not just about mowing down hundreds of enemies. The narrative aims for a more structured narrative. We're entering the Three Kingdoms era again, but this time, it's clear that more emphasis is placed on character development and the flow of events. The gameplay remains Muzu style. You dive into massive armies, clear areas with combo chains, and control the battlefield with special attacks and abilities. The visuals have been significantly upgraded compared to previous games, with battlefields larger and more detailed. Importantly, the game wasn't announced for Switch, but directly for the Nintendo Switch 2, and it was announced that it was being developed specifically for this platform. The release date is set as January 22nd, 2026. So, if you're a regular Switch owner, this game won't appeal directly to you. For Switch 2 users, however, it looks like a strong alternative for those who enjoy action-heavy, large-scale battles. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade has been a game that's been around for years, but the Switch 2 version seems to be what really brings it to that "I'll play it again in my life" moment. Because this time, the focus isn't on the story, but on experiencing the experience properly on a portable device. Being able to play a detailed city like Midgar handheld, digesting missions in short bursts, and experiencing uninterrupted combat is the main draw of this version. The Yuffie chapter comes pre-packaged with the Intergrade content, meaning you're playing the full package, not just the main game. The combat system was already modernized from the start. Adapting it for the Switch 2 has the potential to breathe new life into the game in terms of fluidity and loading times. For me, this version is the kind of game that makes you think, "I've already played it," and then look back. It has a storyline that could be played handheld, but it hasn't had the chance until now. Resident Evil Requiem seems intent on shifting the series' tone, which has shifted towards action in recent years, back to a darker, more tense place, and this taps into what I crave most: genuine horror. The game features a new main character, Grace Ashcroft, and its narrative focuses less on the cliché of saving the world and more on a personal survival story. What's striking in the trailers is the environment itself, rather than the enemy, that feels threatening. Dim lighting, narrow spaces, and a constant sense of "something's here." Resource management is also crucial, requiring you to figure out when to run and when to hide rather than just randomly squeezing ahead. It's encouraging that it's planned for the Switch 2, as these kinds of atmospheric games are even more effective when played handheld. A Resident Evil played in the dark with a headset on would, in my opinion, showcase the console's power not only in terms of graphics but also in terms of suspense. Chromagun 2 Die Hard isn't your typical spray and have fun game. It's entirely based on reasoning and trial and error. You progress by painting walls, objects, and some robots with a paint gun, but which color you spray on what makes a significant difference. While the levels may seem simple thanks to color mixing, magnetic effects, and surfaces that interact with light, the moment they solve them is quite satisfying. The development team has made the puzzles more complex and clever compared to the first game. The Switch 2 release date has been announced as February 12, 2026, meaning the game will be a platform exclusive, not a port, but a directly supported version. Short levels, a replay-friendly structure, and a simple control system make this game perfect for playing on your handheld. Yakuza Kiwami 3 Dark Ties brings back the third installment of the series with a modern remake, while also aiming to frame the story in a darker and more personal light. This version not only refines the original's technical limitations, but also overhauls the character animations, cutscenes, and combat system to meet current standards. Kiryu's confrontation with his dream of a quieter life and his reluctance to let go of the past makes this game one of the most humane in the series. The side story pack, Dark Ties, runs parallel to the main narrative, showcasing other sides of the characters. It's more than just wandering around a single city and fighting, offering a character-driven, long-running story. It's significant that the game has only been announced for the Nintendo Switch 2. There's no official announcement for the classic Switch. In short, this pack seems like a strong candidate for those looking for a story-driven, adult-toned action-adventure on the Switch 2. Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection clearly aims for a darker story than previous entries in the series, and in this respect, it attempts to break away from the spin-off feel. Gameplay follows the classic stories format. The turn-based battle system remains. The bonding mechanic between rider and monster is central, and the rock-paper-scissors-based attack patterns return. However, this time, the emphasis shifts more to storytelling. It's not just about collecting monsters and getting stronger, but also about understanding why the world is corrupted and resolving the characters' conflicts. The game's direct release for the Nintendo Switch 2 brings with it expectations of larger areas, more stable performance, and more detailed animations. The action pace of classic Monster Hunter isn't present here, but instead, it's more relaxed, deliberate, and character-focused. Stories 3 seems like a guaranteed hit for series fans. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined doesn't feel like a rushed remake, but rather a piece of work crafted with time. The game was already quite long and demanding, so it's aimed at those who prefer a slower pace rather than those expecting a quick adventure. The world design is much more legible than the previous version, with each area distinct enough to give you a sense of where you're at. The combat system retains its classic turn-based structure, meaning it requires planning rather than reflexes. Character development is also more flexible, allowing you to more clearly decide who will progress in which direction. I think the best part is that it's available on both Switch and Switch 2, because being able to play such a long RPG handheld is a real pleasure. It'll certainly be smoother on Switch 2, but it's important that both versions are equal in terms of content. I don't see this as a game to be finished quickly, but rather a long journey to replay from time to time. So, those were the top games for Switch and Switch 2 for 2026. If you have any other games on your list, let us know in the comments so we can see what we missed. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it. And if you subscribe for more gaming videos, it would be epic. See you in the next video.